When you wake up in the morning, make sure you avoid coffee. Make sure you are hydrated as soon as you wake up. You want to be drinking water. Destroying the lining of your stomach with coffee is not something you want to do within the first hour of waking up. Gut health is everything. Look after your stomach, because when the stomach is full, it makes all your other tasks very difficult to perform. The stomach has more of an effect on our temperament than our brain does. The brain has neurons in it, but guess what? The stomach has the same neurons that your brain has, just more of them, as does your heart. Nobody survives on 0 calories. The human body cannot sustain life. I hear it quite often. I hear it's just calories in, calories out, bro. It's just macros, bro. Anyone that ends with a sentence or starts a sentence with bro, I tend to switch off anyway. Welcome to the Diet Doctor podcast, where we discuss the science of nutrition and high performance, offering practical tools for everyday life. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the Diet Doctor podcast. This is episode 2. With the first episode, we touched on how I ended up here talking about nutrition, starting off in very, very different vocations in the past. Now we want to delve a little bit deeper into what nutrition means. What are macros? What are micros? What are vitamins and minerals? Do we need them? Can we not eat and take supplements instead? I'm not going to delve too deeply into the eating philosophies, because each one needs an episode within itself. You need to do one for intermittent fasting, one for keto, etc. So we're not going to delve too deeply into that, but we will touch on the benefits of following an ideology like that. And I call them ideologies or philosophies out of respect, because people have dedicated lifetimes to study these different eating philosophies and ideologies. And I find it a little bit disrespectful, even if I disagree with the concept or the ideology, to call it a fad. So I'm not going to say this particular fad or that fad. There are a lot of them out there. However, we're going to stick to a respectful terminology like the ideology or philosophy of ketosis. Now, with regards to nutrition, understanding what portion sizes are, what you should be eating for breakfast, lunch and dinner, should you be eating breakfast, what are the benefits, the pros and cons, will map out what a day looks like for an individual who exercises consistently, is not an elite athlete, but exercises consistently, cares about how they look, but also how they feel, and generally wants to be healthy. The first thing you want to do is, when you wake up in the morning, make sure you avoid coffee. Now, coffee is not the devil. 2/3 of Australians get their antioxidants from coffee, not from fruit. So I'm not going to tell you cannot have coffee. I'm not going to say you cannot have anything forever. Any food philosophy or any diet that's been written down by somebody that tells you have to avoid a certain food product or avoid a certain food or beverage for the rest of your life, provided it's not a poison. That's very important too, because some things are not food or beverages, but they are actual poisons instead. Anyone that tells you cannot have anything for the rest of your life isn't worth the paper it's printed on. That diet is not worth the paper it's printed on. Now, when you wake up in the morning, you want to avoid coffee for the first hour or two so that you don't crash too early in the day and that you don't get your cortisol, your stress hormone, bothering you and interfering with your state of calmness, and instead putting you in a state of angst and anxiety throughout the day. So you want to make sure you are hydrated as soon as you wake up. You want to be drinking water. When you wake up in the morning and you've got a little bit of cotton mouth and that saliva is in your mouth and you wash it down with water, what that does is it alkalizes the environment of the stomach. So it prepares it for a day whereby the stomach can endure what it's going to be exposed to. So it's very, very important that you start with water, not with coffee. Wait at least an hour or two before you have your coffee. One of the things that I really like in the morning is a little bit of greens powder, some glutamine. Glutamine is an amino acid. It's the most abundant amino acid within the body. There are 22 essential and non-essential aminos that make up protein. However, glutamine is the most abundant. They are not all equal in ratio. It's what we consist mostly of, or what our muscles consist mostly of. Now, glutamine is quite interesting. In the beginning, it was marketed for increasing growth hormone by 400%. That's what the labels would say. We know, or I knew back then, I remember in 1998, in the library, going through journal article after journal article on glutamine and creatine, because they sort of came to fruition or rose to popularity at roughly the same time. And I was doing research into glutamine and creatine, whether you should load, not load. This is important to a broke uni student, because if you have to load, it means that your tub doesn't last as long and you run out and you have to fork out for another one. So on that note, loading is a bunch of nonsense. But glutamine, the research that I found on glutamine was fantastic for gut health. And it's something that I've always encouraged. Speaking from within the Islamic tradition, we're taught that the stomach is the worst vessel that the human being can fill. And gut health is everything. Look after your stomach, because when the stomach is full, it makes all your other tasks very difficult to perform. And there's a reason why there's the hadith about 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3, allocating those thirds to water, food, and leaving some room in your stomach to allow you to breathe efficiently. Now, glutamine is great for gut health, and anything that is good for gut health, I'm a big fan of. With the greens powder, I add glutamine. Lately, I've been adding some ashwagandha and some lion's mane, and even mixing that up as a shot with greens juice. Even though there's greens powder, I have greens juice in there, not water, and a bit of apple cider vinegar. The apple cider vinegar is the star of that particular beverage because it is fermented. And I always say to my clients, to my patients, to my friends, to my family, make sure that you have 3 fermented products every single day. If you do this on a daily basis, your gut will be happy, you will be happy, you'll be in a different place mentally and physically, because we know that when the stomach is in a good place, we are in a good place. The stomach has more of an effect on our temperament than our brain does. The brain has neurons in it, but guess what? The stomach has the same neurons that your brain has, just more of them, as does your heart. So these things we have to look after. The 3 fermented things is a fermented beverage. Some people say kombucha, they like kombucha. Apple cider vinegar is a great fermented beverage. And these are the things that will help increase the live bacteria, the good bacteria in your stomach that helps you break down your food, helps support your immune system. I don't like the word boost. Anyone that says boost your immune system doesn't know what they're talking about, because a boosted immune system means an autoimmune disease. So a fermented beverage like apple cider vinegar, a fermented vegetable, pickles, sauerkraut, kimchi, these things we were told in the early days to avoid them because of the sodium content. As long as you're drinking enough water, sodium's not an issue. And as long as you don't have high blood pressure, sodium is not something that you have to monitor too closely, because it is the most abundant electrolyte in the body, sodium and potassium. So fermented beverage, apple cider vinegar, fermented vegetable, pickles, sauerkraut, kimchi, anything that is pickled, and a fermented dairy product, which is, I know you're going to say dairy, lactose, can't do it, but it's naturally low in lactose. Fermented dairy products are naturally low in lactose, and even people who are sensitive to lactose tend to do okay with fermented dairy, such as yogurt. But the best of all would be kefir and goat's milk yogurt. Now, with kefir, I struggle to get my serving of kefir in on a daily basis. So often what I'll do is my post-workout protein shake. After training, I'll have a protein shake. I'll have my own protein shake. This is a shameless plug for Mood Up Whey Protein. If you haven't tried it, you have to. It's made out of only food. Now, I'll have my own protein powder, which is just made out of whole foods. And with that, I won't just mix it with water, but I'll also put 50% water, 50% kefir. Having that as a habit always reminds me to have my serving of kefir, which has a profound effect on my gut health. So if I was going to tell you what to do for ideal gut health, it's those 3 things: the fermented beverage, the fermented vegetable, and the fermented dairy product. And if you're starting at a place where you're quite far from where you want homeostasis to be, you're quite far from where you want your gut health benchmark to be, then maybe you would need to start with a good probiotic. But I'm not going to recommend one on here for you because it's something that you'd have to speak to your health professional about, because there are different types of probiotics for different people. So that's the first thing to do in the morning. Now, the argument is breakfast or no breakfast. For me, I tend to have my coffee en route to the mosque in the morning for Fajr prayer. And like I said, 2/3 of Australians get their antioxidant intake from coffee, not from fruit. So it's not the worst thing in the world. And you'll notice, anyone who's traveled will notice that we have great coffee and how good our coffee is in Australia compared to everybody else's. If you've been to the States, I don't care if it's Italy, right? Our coffee is the best coffee in the world, but as a consequence, it is super acidic. So it's high in acidity, and it can eat the lining of the stomach away and create a whole bunch of intolerances to foods down the track over time, because the weaker your stomach is, the less capable it is of metabolizing food, breaking down food, and doing the right thing with food, because food is essentially building blocks to maintain your physiological needs. So the healthier your stomach is, the better off you are. Destroying the lining of your stomach with coffee is not something you want to do within the first hour of waking up. Now, although 2/3 of Australians get their antioxidant intake from coffee, not from fruit, it is very acidic. And because our coffee is so acidic, we want to make sure that the stomach is lined with something before we consume it. That's coffee. From coffee, I will go into my training session. I prefer my training session to be fasted, because that way I'm not feeling unsettled in the stomach because of consuming something. I can train hard without getting any reflux, and I'm build up an appetite. I like the concept of earning your breakfast. I struggle to have a meal, and this is not for everybody. I struggle to have a meal and go into train, especially for a leg workout. Anyone who did a leg workout with me yesterday will know what I'm talking about. When you're training legs, you tend to get a little bit more nauseous than other workouts. But the reason why I'm touching on this, we are going to talk about exercise and sports science and the different types of training, high reps, low reps, etc., later on. Now, when you are training legs, the blood in your upper body goes to your lower body. As you get a pump down here, that's what happens in the gym. Now, how does your blood go from here to here? It doesn't go from the upper body to the lower body without bypassing the midsection, bypassing the stomach. You've got a copious amount of blood passing through the stomach into the legs. So it's quite unsettling for the stomach to have that transition, that much blood flowing from here down to the legs. And often we can get a little bit nauseous and feel like we want to throw up, and some actually do and then feel better afterwards. So that's one of the reasons I don't like to eat prior to training. After training, I have the first meal of the day. I always recommend all macros. I'm not going to assume that you know what macros are, even though most of you probably do. We're in the age of easy to source information. And macros are proteins, carbs, and fats. But once upon a time, this was not common knowledge. And I've even done workshops where people have put their hand up and said, I've just had such and such. Is that a protein or a carbohydrate? We're not there anymore. I think we're in an age where people understand food a little bit better because people are a little bit more informed and like to do their own homework. Now, proteins, carbs, and fats in the mornings, often I'll opt for salmon because I tick the protein box with salmon and the fats, the good fats with salmon. And salmon is one of the easiest to absorb proteins and the most biologically available form of omega-3 essential fats and the benefits that come with omega-3. So one of the easiest sources of good fats is salmon, more so than avocado. All these are good for you, but they're not as easy to absorb by the human body as salmon is. So avocado is good for you, macadamia oil, coconut oil, MCT oil, all these nuts of various sorts, they're all good for you. But salmon has a more bioavailable form of fat. With that, I will often have brown rice, or I will have a basmati or a jasmine rice, something that's low in glycemic index, or sweet potato and some vegetables. I will start with the vegetables first because they digest the quickest. And that's actually in our tradition, that's what was done in the past. The Prophet ﷺ used to eat food according to biological availability. He would eat, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would eat food according to biological availability, and what was the smoothest and softest in texture would be eaten first, and what was rougher in texture would be consumed last. And that is still the tradition in some countries today, although it's not maintained throughout the world as it used to be, but it is still the culture in a lot of places in the world. So eat food according to biological availability. Eat your vegetables and your salads or your fruit first, and then your proteins and your carbs together. You don't have to isolate carbs and then proteins. There are some nutritionists that I've heard who are interested in food combinations like I am that will tell their clients, eat this first and then eat your protein last and wait 15 minutes in between. It's not a realistic way of eating. I mean, who's going to go to a restaurant, order, let's say, a salad with steak and mash for the day, for that particular meal? Whether it's you consider that a healthy meal or a cheat meal, it's irrelevant. You're not going to eat your salad, wait 10, 15 minutes, then eat your mash and then wait 10, 15 minutes and then go into your steak. It's not really a sustainable way of eating, and it's not realistic. So if you have your salad and veg first, easy. And then have your carbs and your proteins together, because they digest at roughly the same rate. They take about 2 to 3 hours to digest, maximum 4. Now, that will help with the digestive process and help you absorb more from what you eat. Every 3 hours thereafter, I will aim to consume a meal. And all those meals, and this is not just with regards to my own, a lot of you would know by now that I've got my own meal prep company, Meals by Moody, but it's whether it's my food or the food that your wife has cooked or the food that your mum has cooked, one thing I want to point out is it's not just macros. It's not just calories. I hear it quite often. I hear it's just calories in, calories out, bro. It's just macros, bro. Anyone that ends with the sentence or starts the sentence with bro, I tend to switch off anyway. However, calories are not all created equal. I will eat whole foods every 3 hours thereafter and then taper out the carbohydrates, focusing on proteins and veg being the star of the dishes that I have in the latter half of the day. However, you'll notice that they are all whole foods, whether it's my own food, whether it's food that's cooked at home, it's always whole food. And there's a huge difference between whole food and processed food. That's where a lot of discussion that I have in the gym, outside of the gym, tends to happen. People neglect a large area of eating, which is called the thermic effect. Food has what's called a thermic effect. The thermic effect of food is how many calories your body requires to digest and absorb the nutrients from that food. Because being alive expends calories. Me sitting here and talking expends calories. Just to sustain life, you need 1,500 to 2,000 calories, depending on how active you are. That's why if you notice at the back of a label, it would say based on a 2,000 calorie a day diet. This has 10% of your recommended daily intake of vitamin C. But all those percentages that you see on the label are based on a 2,000 calorie a day diet, because nobody survives on 0 calories. The human body cannot sustain life. However, if we can expend calories by not doing anything, then why not? If you can eat a meal that is 500 calories and expend 100 calories through the digestive process, which is the case with whole food, even more sometimes, up to 150, why not? Why not expend calories through the thermic effect of food? That's the benefit of whole food. If I have 500 calories of something that's been heavily processed and manufactured so that there's no effort or stress on behalf of the digestive system, then the expenditure of calories from 500 calories can be as little as 3 to 9. So the net total is not the same. So you can have two individuals, and this is very important to understand. There are two individuals eating the same food. They have the same BMI, they have the same age, same weight, same height, everything's the same. Follow the same diet. And we see this in the gym, we see this with friends, people eating the same, training the same, but the outcomes are very different. The calories that if one person is consuming calories largely from manufactured sources, then that person is requiring little to no digestive effort, not expending much. 500 calories, if I'm being optimistic, that person will expend 9 calories through digestion, not 3. You're still left with a net total of 491 calories for every 500 that is consumed. The person consuming the whole food, on the other hand, will have expended 100 to 150 calories. Now, let's be pessimistic on this side and say, okay, I've consumed 500 calories and 100 calories have only gone to digestion. That's a net total of 400 versus 491. So what you're left with is very different. And keep in mind, 100 calories on the treadmill is a good solid 12, 15 minutes walk. I'm talking about a power walk, not window shopping, a solid pace of power walking. If you can get that done every time you eat a meal, then why not? That's the difference. And that's why it's not just calories in, calories out. The other thing is whole foods don't have artificial preservatives and colors and things that are toxins that inhibit the digestion or the absorption of things that are good for you that you may eat later on. For example, if I have something that has artificial colors and flavors and preservatives, then after that, I have a meal that consists of vegetables and, fibrous and cruciferous vegetables and vitamins and minerals. My ability to absorb those vitamins and minerals from the broccoli, for example, that I eat may be inhibited because these artificial preservatives and ingredients are still in my stomach at the time. And that's what we have to understand. There was a fantastic study that was done on that topic exactly. And these days, gastroenterologists use a little capsule-sized camera for the patient to swallow. I had a patient that got it done in a hospital not long ago. They swallow the capsule and it records everything that you are going through as you are digesting the food. And the study that was shown was quite remarkable. There were 2 subjects. Both ate the same food. Wheat, flour, and salt were the ingredients, and it was noodles. But this person had homemade noodles, and this person had noodles that you buy at the grocery store. Both have the same ingredients. They have wheat, flour, and salt. Ingredients that we would deem not good for you. But look at the difference. The camera recorded everything that was happening through the digestive process and what was happening in the stomach at the time. When that capsule was swallowed, the person who had the 2-minute noodles also happened to have a blue Gatorade with their noodles. Now, because of the artificial preservatives and ingredients, which have to exist for them to be in grocery for the most part, because the shelf life is the determining variable when you're getting a food item into grocery, such as Woolies or Coles. That person still had, after 4 hours, still had shards of noodles with teeth marks on them in the stomach. They haven't even made their way to the small and large intestine. Still sitting in the stomach 4 hours later, and they were dyed blue because of the blue Gatorade that they had drank with it at the time. And keep in mind that blue coloring, artificial blue coloring, comes from petroleum, and a human being cannot digest petroleum. On the other side, the person that had the same noodles, the wheat, flour, salt, without the artificial ingredients and preservatives and colors, that person's noodles did not exist. There were no trace elements left that were visible on the camera in that person's stomach within 40 minutes. 40 minutes later, there was nothing there. 4 hours later, they were still there intact with teeth marks on them. That's the difference between whole food and manufactured food that's artificially colored, artificial flavors, artificial preservatives to increase the shelf life. This is why we must be conscious of what we consume, not just how we consume. I'm not going to delve too much deeper into any of the other topics. I think we've covered quite a good foundational base of what to do, what not to do. One last thing that I will mention, however, is hydration. Make sure you are drinking 30 mils of water for every kilogram of body weight that you are. So if you are 80 kilograms in weight 80 times 30 mils is 2,400 milliliters. That's 2.4 liters. You owe your body 2.4 liters of water every day if you want to look and feel great. 2/3 of the way we look and feel are based on water and sleep. 1/3 water, 1/3 sleep. We haven't even started discussing food and exercise yet. So if you want to look good and feel good, focus on your hydration, focus on your sleep. 30 mils per kilogram. Hypothetically speaking, if I was to weigh 80 kilograms, I'm probably less than that. But if I was 80 kilograms, I would need 2.4 liters of water every single day, exercising or not. That's just to maintain healthy organ function, healthy cognitive functioning, tunnel vision, focus during the day, vitality during the day, and even better sleep at night. We'll talk about sleep as a standalone topic because that's a big topic. Now, if I was to have coffee like I'm having now, for every shot of coffee, there's 2 in here. For every shot of coffee, I owe my body another 100 to 150 mils of water. And that water does not count towards my 2.4 liter quota. So if I've had 2 shots of coffee, I owe myself at least another 200 mils. We're up to 2.6 liters now. If I was to train in the gym for 45 minutes with a medium to high intensity, I require anywhere between half a liter to a liter, depending on how big I am. That's 2.6 liters plus a minimum of another 500 mils. We're up to 3.1. Let's say I bought a domestic flight that day as well. I'm at 3.1 liters. A domestic flight will require of me another 100 mils to 150 mils per hour of flying because of the dehydration effect of flying. So 2.4 liters is the benchmark. Everything that you endure throughout the course of the day with regards to caffeine, exercise, flying, that has to be taken into account separately. And keep in mind that caffeine doesn't just come from coffee. Green tea, herbal teas, no, but green tea, for instance, has about 1/3 of the caffeine intake of coffee. So even if you have a green tea, you owe yourself a little bit of water as well. So keep those in mind. The fermented products, the 3 fermented Fs, the structure of the day, how to start your day, the role of coffee, water, sleep, and all of these things are very, very important. Keep all these variables in mind, and you have you have a framework to follow of what a day would look like in the life of somebody who is looking after not just the way that they look, but also the way that they feel. In the next episode, I would love to touch on some of the correlational studies between prophetic medicine, Tibb al-Nabawi, which is also the traits and the behaviors of our ancestors, in particular the Prophet ﷺ, and his family and his companions, and how they used to eat and some of the rules and things that they used to follow, and the correlation of those things with evidence-based research from today. Research that is quite relatively new, and there is some profound correlation, causal links between the two, not just correlation, causal correlation between the two areas of research. So I look forward to doing that and analyzing those with you and delving deeper into those topics in the next episode. Jazakallah khairan for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.